Hey guys, it's Miss Sims. So YouTube tried to sabotage me. So evidently I broke copyright because I showed a clip of Whitney Houston from 1981, I believe, singing the Star Spangled Banner. So anyways, last night whenever I submitted it at like 10 o'clock, it was fine. But by this morning, it had said that I had committed copyright infringement and they took the video down. So that's why you couldn't see the video before, okay? So I have sent you guys an email and I have put it on Google Classroom. So there's a video that is the notes. That's what I recorded last night. I basically just trimmed off the part for the Whitney Houston national anthem. And then now I'm going to do another video that is explaining the assignment. So if you've already done the assignment and you feel good about it, it's okay. You don't necessarily need to watch this. Like watch the whole part, maybe watch the instructions at the beginning, but you don't have to watch the whole part. But if you were struggling a little bit, this might help you some, okay? Because basically what I did is I walked you through it, which was all part of one video, and they took that video down. Okay, so for what you're going to be doing is you're going to be looking at the War of 1812 primary source, okay? So it is on Google Classroom, so if you go to classwork, and then it's right here, the War of 1812 primary source, and you can pull this up. Okay, I would like for you guys to put your answers either like do it through Kami or you can do it through Google Docs. So if you click right here and you click open with, you can either do annotate with Kami or you can do Google Docs. And the reason is because it's going to ask you like a question, like number one, and then it's going to ask you like where you found that in the document. And so you're going to need to be able to highlight or in some way manipulate the document. You can't just type your answers, okay? One other thing that's important is you'll notice this last question, I asked you to write your answer in a paragraph. So don't skip that one. That one is worth more points than any of the other ones because it's more work. So just make sure whenever you're answering these questions that you do everything asked you. So like you answer the question and then you do the highlighting part, because if you don't do the highlighting part, you're not going to get a good grade. And then if you don't answer this one, you're really not going to get a good grade. Like you won't get over a 50 because that is like the majority of the work. Okay. And in this question, it's asking for 3 reasons. So one paragraph and it has 3 reasons. Okay. All right. I'm going to read through this. This is a primary source, which if you guys remember means it was written by someone who experienced it during this time period. So it's a little bit harder to understand than like if I wrote something about it today. So that's why I wanted to kind of go through it so I can kind of explain as we go. So let me make it just a little bigger. Okay, this is written by James Madison, who was the president at the time. In the notes, so the first video that you guys watched, I gave you guys like a background story on Dolly Madison and how her slave, his last name is Jennings. My brain just went blank on what his first name was. He was 15. He was the one that helped like save the portrait of Washington whenever they were fleeing the Capitol. Anyways, this is her husband. And he is writing this before the war has actually like been declared. Okay, so this is kind of showing you like why they're going to declare war. Like you can kind of see that motivation here. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So this says British cruisers, that means like British ships. British cruisers have been in the continued practice of violating the American flag on the great highway of nations and is seizing and carrying off persona sailing under it. Okay, the great highway of nations just means like the ocean because anyone has access to the ocean. It's not like just one country's. And he is basically saying that these British ships have over and over and over again continued practice. They are violating the rights of the American flag, and they are taking, that's what seizing means, and carrying off people who are sailing under the American flag. Okay, next, the practice, so talking about the carrying off, so that's called impressment. Remember we talked about that in the notes. That's the previous video. Make sure you have watched that. The practice is so far from affecting British citizens alone that under the pretext of searching for these thousands of American citizens under the safeguard of public law and their national flag have been torn from their country. and everything dear to them. Okay, and we're going to stop there. So basically what was happening was the British were going and they were stopping all these ships, and they said that they were doing it because they were looking for people who, like British citizens that were supposed to be fighting in the Navy. But basically James Madison is saying, like, it's not just affecting British citizens, they're also stopping American American ships and taking American citizens. And it's not by accident. Like, he's basically saying that it's on purpose. Okay. And he's going to go on to tell you what they did. Let's see here. Searching for it under the safeguard, everything that holds you. So right here, they've been dragged on board ships of war of a foreign nation and exposed under the severities of their discipline to be exiled to the most distant and deadly climes to risk their lives in the battle of their oppressor. So basically it's saying, like, not only are they being kidnapped, they're being forced to fight for the British Navy. And so they're being forced to fight for a country that is not their own. And then he's going to go on and he's going to say, and to be the melancholy instruments of taking away those of their own brethren, which means that they're being used to kidnap other Americans and force them into the British Navy. So that is called impressment again, okay? And so then it continues on. British cruisers, remember those are ships, have been in the practice of also violating the rights and the peace of our coast. So like our shoreline, the United States. They hover over and harass our entering and departing commerce. So if you guys remember from the vocabulary that we took, the word commerce meant like buying and selling goods. So in the notes, I talked about that our economy is based off of importing and exporting goods, so selling goods and buying goods. And so this is saying that these British ships have constantly been bothering our folks. And remember, we're not at war yet. So we haven't gone to war. It's a peacetime. They should not be affecting like our ships that are trying to buy and sell goods. Under pretended blockades, our commerce has been plundered in every sea, and the great staples of our country have been cut off from the legitimate markets, and a destructive blow aimed at agriculture and maritime interests. So basically he's saying, like, our farmed goods, our maritime goods, like any kind of goods that are a part of our economy has been affected by this. And again, remember, we're not at war, so they don't have a right to do this. Okay, last paragraph. In reviewing the conduct or the behavior of Great Britain towards the United States, our attention is necessarily drawn to the warfare just renewed by the savages on one of our extensive frontiers. Okay, here he's talking about the Native Americans. Okay, so basically he's saying there's renewed tension between the Americans and the Native Americans that are living in what is the United States, but is not like officially occupied as like a state, but it's still a part of the United States. A warfare which is known to spare neither age nor sex. So basically saying that the natives have attacked men and women, children, adults. It is difficult to account for the activity and the combinations which have for some time been developing themselves among tribes in constant intercourse with British traders and garrisons. Basically, he's saying, like, it's impossible for me to believe that the interaction between the British and the Native Americans is not what has led to this fighting and this tension. So basically, he's putting all the blame on British traders and these British garrisons without connecting their hostility with that influence and without recollecting the authenticated examples of such impositions or meddling. So basically saying, like, we have proof that the British have been involved, that the British have been meddling. Heretofore furnished by the officers and agents of that government. So basically he's saying, like, we have evidence from legitimate sources that it is the British's fault that we have been affected, or the natives have been encouraged to fight us. Okay, last sentence. We behold on the side of Great Britain a state of war against the United States. So basically he's saying Britain is acting like we're at war, and on the side of the United States, a state of peace towards Great Britain. But we are acting like we're at peace because that's what we are, at peace. Okay, and that's kind of where it stops. So what you need to know about James Madison is he's a war hawk. And we talked about in the notes, that means that he wants to go to war with Great Britain. And so essentially this is his case that he is like presenting as evidence of why the United States should go to war with Great Britain. And as we know, the United States is going to do that. So what you guys are going to do, the questions go in order, is you're going to answer like this question. So how are the British violating the American flag? So it says up here, the practice of violating the American flag. And then it goes on to explain how they have like violated that. So you're going to write that answer, and then you're going to highlight where you found that in the document. So if it's like this little part right here, you'll highlight it, and you can put like a number 1 out to the side. It's probably the easiest to do that in Kami, but if you want to try to do it in Google Docs, you can. Okay, and then it goes on and it asks you other questions. Just remember, if it asks you a question and it tells you to highlight, if you don't do the highlighting, like that's half of the question. So you're only going to get half credit. And if you do that on every question, you can end up with a 50. Okay, so just make sure that you're fully doing that. And then this last question asks you to answer, it's your opinion, but you need to answer in a paragraph, and you need to give me 3 reasons from the text. Okay, so after you answer these questions, you'll probably have your 3 reasons. Okay, this is how I'm taking attendance today. So you have to make sure that you turn this in. Okay, all right, guys. Hopefully that is helpful. Let me know if you need anything.